So obviously a major story in the last couple of days has been Andrade's release from WWE. Now this has been something that's been ongoing for the last week or so because of course it was reported previously that Andrade had requested his release from the company. Initially it was denied, but eventually now it has been granted and Andrade has been released by the WWE. Now I did mention before when we spoke about this at the time that Andrade had requested his WWE release that I felt that it was the beginning of the end, as it were, for Andrade in WWE. We've seen this pattern over the course of the last few years for a variety of talents within the company. Once they request that release, ultimately it probably ends up getting denied the first time. Sometimes it does get approved and they do leave the company, but a lot of the time it does get denied, but eventually they leave in the end because WWE ultimately realizes that regardless of how long they have on their contract, they can't have an unhappy person there, or especially in the times right now where money is a bit tighter, not necessarily completely tight for WWE, they're signing billion-dollar contracts, but they realize that it's a waste of finances and having an unhappy person around the company can upset the locker room, and sometimes it's just not financially viable to have someone sitting at home, especially when they're connected with high-profile superstars like Charlotte Flair in the case of Andrade. So I thought it was the beginning of the end, but it certainly is something that we're going to hear more and more about, and we have heard more and more about as time has gone on. So WWE released Andrade. The announcement was made after Sunday's Fastlane pay-per-view that Andrade is no longer with the company. WWE noted that they have come to terms on his release and they wished him the best in his future endeavors. Now, as I mentioned, it was previously reported, first it was exclusively reported by Wrestling Inc. that Andrade requested his WWE release while backstage at the March 8th edition of Monday Night Raw. It was later reported that he looked, quote, absolutely miserable while at the taping. This was revealed after Andrade dropped the WWE from his Twitter handle and removed WWE from his bio. Now, Andrade broke the silence on the reports last week, confirming that the rumors were true. He also noted in the post that he didn't know what the future holds, but he wanted his dreams to come true. Now, it had been reported that WWE was not planning on granting the release request, but it was made official after Fastlane on Sunday. Andrade tweeted during the pay-per-view that he had some, quote, good news to come using the hashtag happy in his post. Now, of course, as I mentioned, Andrade is engaged to be married to Charlotte Flair, who last appeared on Raw. Andrade last appeared on Raw at the WWE draft in October of 2020. He was taken out by The Fiend Bray Wyatt in his last appearance, and he took some time off to undergo a minor procedure after the draft and was never officially drafted to Raw or SmackDown. He was scheduled to be out of action for around a month but never returned to WWE television. There had been some rumours of Andrade returning to WWE, being back on Raw with Charlotte or possibly going to NXT, but nothing ever came of that. After successful runs in Mexico and New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE signed Andrade to work in NXT in November of 2015. He made his in-ring debut at January's 2016 live event, and he had a strong run on the brand before being called up to SmackDown in April of 2018 as part of the Superstar Shakeup. He leaves the company as a former NXT champion and former United States champion. He last wrestled on the October 12th Raw draft show in a loss to Angel Garza. Now, as I mentioned, I was a bit hesitant on doing a video initially about this when it came to the news being announced, because I felt there was going to be more to come, and there certainly is more to come, and there certainly has been a lot more information about this regarding about non-compete clauses, where he's going to go next, options for him, etc., and comments made by a plethora of people, including Andrade, about his release. Now, Andrade took to Twitter yesterday to thank Triple H, Paul Heyman and William Regal for supporting him in WWE over the years. Andrade issued the first comment since being released, also mentioning fans and wrestlers. He said, quote, I want to thank Triple H, Paul Heyman and William Regal for all these years and great support they have given me all these years, and also to the fans who are always supporting me. A big hug to all the talents and workers who have always behaved kindly to me. He then posted a follow-up tweet saying, happy life, happy wife. He also said, I'm not sad and super happy. Again, this was the beginning. This was the beginning of lots of different comments regarding Andrade and his WWE release. It was later reported that Andrade is reportedly able to start taking bookings from other professional wrestling companies immediately. It was some speculation that Andrade would be limited and bound to the standard 90-day non-compete clause when most talents are released from the company. That there is a lot of people get confused between the non-compete clause when you get released and the expiration of your contract. If your WWE contract expires in the likes of, say, Matt Hardy, the very next day you can appear for another company. If you get released before your contract expires, usually you have to wait the standard 90-day non-compete clause before you can start accepting bookings or appearing on television for other promotions, etc. But F4W Online is reporting that apparently there is no non-compete clause for Andrade, and he is set to free to start taking dates immediately, which is certainly interesting because that isn't usually the case. Now we don't know how long Andrade had left on his deal, but the fact that he's not bound by any non-compete clause is certainly very interesting. Now, there's no word yet on what Andrade has planned for his future. There were reports previously that he had filed to trademark another name, and there was discussion that he could be heading back to Mexico. We'll touch on his options in a second. But Thea Trinidad, formerly known as Zelina Vega, also took to Twitter yesterday to send a message to Andrade following his WWE departure. As I mentioned previously, Andrade thanked Triple H, Paul Heyman, and William Regal in a tweet yesterday. Trinidad responded to that tweet and said she's so grateful to know Andrade, her former client on WWE television. She said, quote, "Since the moment I met you, I knew that you were not only an amazing person, but also one of the most talented in the business, and you'd be successful no matter what. I'm so grateful to know you, share these memories, and have a brother for life. Love you, Hermano." Andrade has not responded to the tweet as of right now. As of recording, Andrade and Thea Trinidad, Zelina Vega, were a pair in WWE NXT and then on the main roster. As I mentioned, Andrade last appeared on Raw in October with Thea Trinidad. She was drafted to SmackDown that night while he was taken out by The Fiend in his final appearance. Trinidad was then released by the company in November of last year, on November 13, after issues with the company regarding third-party platforms. In recent months, Trinidad has focused her video game streaming service since leaving WWE on Twitch and does not work for any other promotions as of yet. Her non-compete clause that she was bound to has subsequently expired. So again, that's why it's interesting when it comes to this whole non-compete situation, because usually most talents have that 90-day non-compete clause. Zelina Vega did have it, but Andrade doesn't. So what are the options? What are the options? That's what the title of this video is, and on the thumbnail for this video, it's all about the options. Let's talk about some of the options that Andrade has. We talk a lot about Impact Wrestling here on the channel. And when Zelina Vega was released by WWE last year, I said that Impact Wrestling would definitely be an option for her. I still do think it is the case. I still do think that is the case for Zelina Vega. I think Impact Wrestling is an option. Do I see Andrade going to Impact Wrestling? No disrespect to Impact, but they are a small company, and I know that they are making some strides at the moment. I know they have a big pay-per-view in Rebellion coming up in April. They have a huge main event as part of the AEW Impact Wrestling working relationship. Kenny Omega is going to be facing off against Rich Swann, title versus title. I just think someone of the stature of Andrade, someone of the buzz and talent that Andrade has, I think it's unlikely he would go to Impact Wrestling. I think there are other maybe bigger and better options available to him. There's no doubt Impact Wrestling could make him a very generous offer, and I always say this when I talk about Impact Wrestling on the channel, is that people think that Impact Wrestling isn't this well-backed company because they are smaller and because they don't have this huge television audience that other companies do have, but they are very well-backed by their owners in Anthem Sports and Entertainment, and they have shouted up some very big contracts in the past, especially for the likes of the Good Brothers. They made statements last year when they recruited these names that had just been released by WWE, so it's not out of the realms of possibility. I just think there are other options available to him. What Impact can offer someone like Andrade, though, is the fact that they are willing to have talent coming and work their TV tapings on having no contract, so they're just working per dates, so they're not tied down to anything long term, or they're happy to sign him to a very short contract that might just be a month, a couple of months to get to a big pay-per-view match, and then they're willing to let you move on. That's why we've seen in the past the likes of Blake Christian, who weren't working on contracts with Impact Wrestling, suddenly be signed by WWE. So I think that is the most likely scenario if Andrade was going to go to Impact Wrestling or anything like that. I just don't think that is likely. Obviously, lots of people are going to talk about him going to AEW, and I know that AEW has been criticised for signing some of the people that have been released by WWE, but there is a difference between being released by WWE because you're not very good or because you're just surplus to requirements, and being released because you had an issue with the company or because you weren't happy there or you weren't happy with the creative that you were given and your talent isn't in doubt and your talent is without question, and then going to AEW gives you an opportunity to be successful and prove people wrong. Names like Brody Lee, Miro, I don't know necessarily sure if I'd throw Matt Hardy into there, certainly a John Moxley, those kind of names that WWE would have ultimately probably have liked to have kept. And if this was a different regime, they would obviously have huge success and huge amounts of talent. I think Andrade falls into that category, so there's no doubt that AEW will be interested. There are reports that Tony Khan is actually friends with Zelina Vega, and Tony Khan was interested in bringing in Zelina Vega. Maybe they come in as a pair. I would like to think they probably come in as a pair. I know people, in some cases, people don't like to repeat what they did in WWE, but these two obviously work incredibly well together. They're best known working together, especially in North America. Maybe not so much in Mexico or Japan, but certainly in North America, they're best known to be working together. They're a great package and they're both available. I think it's a no-brainer for AEW to be interested. Obviously, they have the finances to pull a deal off for both of them, and I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if it's Wednesday night tomorrow. Are they going to appear at the latest edition of Dynamite? I don't know if they would do it that soon. We do have Double or Nothing coming up in May. I know that is a little way off right now, but certainly that could be a possibility that we see Andrade and Zelina Vega debut for AEW if they have a Casino Battle Royal with a surprise entrant or another big surprise signing or something like that. Andrade and Zelina Vega would be massive additions to the company. So I really wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if that was going to be the case. Obviously, there are other options available to Andrade. Obviously, the likes of Ring of Honor, MLW. I don't see him going there. Again, maybe because I just think he's going to be so in demand and the finances are going to be so high. I wonder if he would be willing to go there at this time. I think there are more attractive options to him. Obviously, the other big options to him are New Japan Pro Wrestling. Of course, he has history there. Again, like with anything, when it comes to New Japan at the moment, if you're based in North America, which is where Andrade is based for right now, there is obviously travel issues in going back and forth to Japan. It's possible to fly out to Japan. We've seen lots of people do it, come over to North America and go back. The issue is that it takes time now. It takes a bit of time. Flying out to Japan isn't like it was previously where you could fly out, do the show, come back. They're long flights, but it's possible. Now it's kind of a case of you have to factor in all of the quarantining periods and all of the health and safety procedures as well. So flying out there, you might have to quarantine for a week or 2 weeks. Flying back, you might have to quarantine for a couple of weeks. Again, this is ever evolving and ever changing. Just because Andrade signs with New Japan doesn't necessarily mean he'll fly to Japan straight away. Obviously, they've got the New Japan Strong Show based in the United States. That is absolutely a possibility. He has history with the company. If he comes into New Japan, I mean, let's be honest, Andrade goes into any company, and he should have been one of the top talents in WWE. I mean, in terms of talent, he absolutely was. But he goes into any company, whether it is AEW, Impact, New Japan, or any company in Mexico or whatever, he is going to be a top tier talent and will probably be heading to the main events very, very quickly. He's just that talented. And if he comes in with a Zelina Vega, I mean, then you've got the total package. The only criticism of someone like Andrade is that his promos necessarily aren't the best, but that's because his command of English isn't amazing. But in terms of improvement, over the course of his WWE career, it's really improved. I mean, there are stories about Andrade going to press days when he wasn't even meant to be there just to do interviews in English, just to improve his English and his command of the English language. That's the kind of talent that you're going to be signing in terms of, work rate and work ethic as well. So if he goes into a New Japan Pro Wrestling with a Zelina Vega, then he goes right into the main events for me. I think he goes right up there very, very quickly. And it's a possibility he does go to New Japan. Again, flying out to Japan isn't impossible, but it's certainly something that there is logistical issues. But he could obviously appear on the New Japan Strong Show as well. And obviously with them getting a more of an increased footprint in America, in North America with recent TV deals, obviously having someone like Andrade might be the push that they need in that right direction. Again, I think it's a possibility he can probably work with New Japan and another company based in North America in a similar sort of vein as a Chris Jericho or a John Moxley or other names. So if he works for AEW, he could potentially work with a New Japan or something like that in that contract as well. So I think that's a possibility. And then obviously he has the chance to go back to Mexico. He's a ginormous star in Mexico. There have been rumors that he was going to go back to being a masked superstar, a masked wrestler in Mexico. He did trademark a name, which I don't have to hand. You can let me know what it is in the comment section below. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there was rumors that he was going to go back to being a masked star in Japan and in Mexico rather. Which is unusual. Most of the time, once you've lost the masks, that's it. You don't tend to go back to it. But Andrade was, I guess, looking to break tradition when it comes to that. He could, and again, this is what it's, I guess, how fortunate sometimes Mexican wrestlers can be if they get to a decent level in WWE, is that just because of their exposure in Mexico in the first place, they can be fine for the rest of their careers working in Mexico. Now, Andrade's come to North America. Well, obviously, Andrade's come up from Mexico, rather. It is in North America. They've come up from Mexico and had relative success in the United States, and also had some success in Japan as well. So he's an even bigger star in Mexico because of that. So he could work in Mexico for the rest of his career and be perfectly fine financially. He really could. And whether or not he will do that remains to be seen. I don't know how he would feel about the travel. I think he's probably based, like most WWE superstars, in Orlando or in Florida. I don't know where Charlotte Flair is based. Of course, that's going to factor into it as well. So there is a plethora of possibilities. I would think most likely he probably in the immediate future probably goes back to Mexico and probably does some shots there for some big money and some big ovations and some big news. I think in the long term, though, I would be very surprised if he doesn't end up in AEW. And I know it's cliche and easy for everyone to say, oh, they're just going to go to AEW. But I think for Andrade, if you're AEW, this isn't just picking up a former WWE star. This is picking up a young star, and you've got the whole package there because you've got Andrade and Zelina Vega available. And these are young talents. These aren't washed up talents that are near the end of their career or in their 40s or anything like that, which AEW has been criticized for signing. Whether it's Christian Cage or Sting or those names, this is a young, hungry talent that really does have the potential, or has shown, that he is able to compete in the main event scene when he was in NXT. So the transition there is just so seamless. It's so seamless, and I think it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. So I certainly expect to see Andrade in AEW soon. How soon? Well, him and Zelina Vega are both available right now. Are they going to appear on Dynamite on Wednesday? I would be surprised, but it's not impossible. It's certainly not impossible. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Andrade being released by WWE, having no non-compete clause? Where do you think is next for Andrade? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, got the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.